We are doing a better job than ever identifying ADHD. Children are being evaluated earlier, teens are receiving accommodations, and young adults are heading off to college with support plans in place, extended time, reduced workloads, and access to quieter testing environments. On paper, it looks like we are finally getting it right. And yet, I continue to see the same pattern over and over again in my work with families. A child or young adult receives the diagnosis, they begin medication, accommodations are implemented, and everyone is hopeful that things will finally improve, only to find that they are still struggling to focus, still overwhelmed, still unable to follow through, and still questioning why things feel so hard. This is often the moment where I hear, maybe the medication just doesn't work. And while that may be true in some cases, more often than not, that is not actually what is happening. What I see is a critical gap not in diagnosis and not in access to treatment, but in psychoeducation. We are handing young people tools without ever teaching them how to use them. We are addressing symptoms without addressing the system those symptoms exist within. We are focusing on what is visible attention, behavior, productivity, without understanding what is driving those outcomes beneath the surface. ADHD is not simply a disorder of attention. It is a disorder that exists within an entire ecosystem of biological, psychological, and environmental inputs. In psychology, we refer to this as the biopsychosocial model, which explains that behavior is never the result of a single factor, but rather the interaction between brain chemistry, thought processes, and environmental conditions. When translated into everyday life, this means that how a child sleeps, what they eat, how much time they spend on screens, how hydrated they are, how much movement they get, and whether or not there is structure and predictability in their day, all directly impact their brain's ability to regulate, focus, and function. Welcome back to the Path to Peace Therapy podcast. I'm Stephanie Buckley, a solution-focused parenting strategist, ADHD specialist, and family systems coach. I specialize in helping families navigate ADHD, executive functioning challenges, and the emotional patterns that keep households stuck in cycles of frustration, avoidance, and conflict. My work is deeply rooted in solution-focused therapy, which moves us away from analyzing the why of the problem and instead focuses on identifying practical strategies to build momentum and restore confidence. I also lean heavily into Bowen family systems theory, which teaches us that no child or parent exists in a vacuum. Families are emotional units, and when one member struggles with regulation or motivation, the entire system adapts. Understanding these interconnected patterns is the key to lasting change. I bring more than just clinical theory to this microphone. I've been married for over 3 decades and have lived the journey of raising a now thriving 23-year-old neurodivergent son with ADHD. We are so proud of the man he has become, a talented singer-songwriter and gifted multi-instrumentalist whose dedication to his craft and musical range truly reflect his passion for creating and performing music as a career. My personal experience as a parent and my professional work intersect every single day. I'm here to help you look beneath the behavior so you can move your family from chaos and confusion into clarity, confidence, and peace. First, let's talk about medication. When appropriately prescribed, can be incredibly helpful. It can improve attention, increase impulse control, and allow the brain to access focus more readily. But it is essential to understand what medication is actually designed to do. Medication is a form of symptom reduction. It helps manage specific neurological symptoms associated with ADHD, but it does not teach skills, it does not regulate lifestyle factors, and it does not correct environmental misalignment. It does not improve sleep hygiene, it does not balance blood sugar, it does not reduce excessive screen use, and it does not build executive functioning skills such as planning organization, or time management. Executive functioning, which is governed by the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and goal-directed behavior, is highly sensitive to internal and external conditions. When the body is dysregulated, the prefrontal cortex becomes less efficient, meaning that even with medication, the brain may not be able to perform at the level expected. This is where we begin to see the disconnect. A teen may be taking their medication consistently, but they are staying up until midnight or later on screens, exposing their brain to high levels of stimulation that disrupt natural dopamine regulation. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation and reward. And when it is repeatedly spiked through activities like video games or fast-paced social media, the brain begins to down-regulate its baseline levels. This results in everyday tasks like schoolwork feeling slow, boring, and difficult to engage with. At the same time, if that same teen is waking up sleep-deprived, skipping breakfast, or consuming high-sugar, low-protein meals, and not hydrating adequately, their brain is now operating under multiple layers of physiological stress. Blood sugar instability alone can lead to energy crashes, irritability, and reduced cognitive clarity, while dehydration, even at mild levels, has been shown to impair attention, processing speed, and mood regulation. In addition, we cannot ignore the impact of highly processed foods, including artificial dyes such as red 40, yellow 5, and blue 1, as well as nitrates commonly found in processed meats. These substances have been associated in some individuals with increased hyperactivity, irritability, and behavioral dysregulation. When you combine poor nutrition, inconsistent sleep, excessive screen time, and lack of structure, you are creating an internal environment where the brain is being asked to perform without the necessary conditions to support that performance. This is why so many parents and young adults come to the conclusion that the medication didn't work, when in reality, the conditions required for the medication to be effective were never established. From a clinical standpoint, this is often an example of what we call an attribution error, where the cause of a problem is incorrectly assigned to one factor while overlooking other contributing variables. The medication becomes the focus of blame, when in fact, the broader ecosystem is what needs attention. If one component of the system is off, the entire system compensates, often in ways that present as behavioral challenges, lack of motivation, or emotional dysregulation. This is why I consistently guide families to shift their perspective away from asking, "Why isn't this working?" to instead asking, "What is this brain being asked to function on?" Structure and routine also play a critical role in this ecosystem. For individuals with ADHD, external structure acts as a form of scaffolding for internal regulation. Without predictable routines, the brain is forced to make repeated decisions throughout the day, leading to decision fatigue, feeling overwhelmed, and eventual shutdown or avoidance. When structure is in place, clear expectations, consistent schedules, designated spaces for tasks, the brain is freed up to focus on execution rather than constant recalibration. This is not about rigidity. It is about creating an environment that supports cognitive efficiency. It is also important to communicate directly to teens and young adults that this is not about blame or perfection. This is about understanding their brain so they can begin to take ownership of what supports them. Medication can be a valuable tool, but it is only one piece of a much larger system. When that system is aligned, when sleep is consistent, nutrition is balanced, hydration is prioritized, screen use is moderated, and structure is in place, the brain is far more capable of accessing focus, managing emotions, and following through on tasks. Without those elements, even the best interventions will fall short. The goal is not to overhaul everything overnight, but to begin with small foundational shifts. A consistent sleep schedule, a a protein-rich breakfast paired with hydration, and reducing late-night screen exposure can create significant changes in how the brain functions day to day. From there, additional layers can be added, including movement, improved nutrition, and structured routines. These are not just lifestyle recommendations. They are neurological supports that directly influence how the brain operates. The bottom line is this: you can have the right diagnosis, the right medication, and the right accommodations. But if the ecosystem is not supporting the brain, the results will continue to feel inconsistent and frustrating. Medication may open the door, and accommodations may make the environment more accessible, but neither replaces the need to understand and support the system as a whole. You cannot run a regulated brain on a dysregulated lifestyle. When we begin to look at behavior through this broader lens, we move out of frustration and into understanding. And from there, we can finally create the kind of change that is not only effective, but sustainable. This episode is for educational purposes and to provide support. It is not a substitute for professional mental health evaluation, diagnosis, or treatment. The more we learn to recognize the patterns behind behavior, the more compassion and support we can offer to our kids, our partners, and ourselves. If this episode resonated with you and you would like additional support for your family, you can reach out directly by email at stephanieb@thepathtopeacetherapy.com. If you are in California, I offer virtual sessions for families navigating ADHD, executive functioning challenges, anxiety, and complex family dynamics. You can also learn more about my work at thepathtopeacetherapy.com. And as always, take a deep breath, give yourself some grace, and remember, peace is possible, and you don't have to do this alone.